In tonight's news, disaster at sea. The faces of survivors reflect the horror. Hundreds are missing in shark-infested waters. Separation entitlement.
Look, Quebecers are the owners of a quarter of the Canadian monetary supply.
The PQ predicts continent-wide currency. And mail-order misery. Made in Canada, cheaper in the U.S.
CTV News with Sandie, Rinaldo.
Good evening. A terrible disaster at sea off the coast of Egypt today. A ferry with more than 600 people aboard sank in the shark-infested waters of the Red Sea, and nearly 400 people are missing and feared dead. The ferry was on its way to Egypt from Saudi Arabia when it ran into stormy weather. It was swept up by high waves and hurled against a reef near the port of Safaga, about 500 kilometers from Cairo. We have a report from Carol Berger in Cairo.
Saudi port officials said the ferry sank only 20 minutes after sending a distress signal. Egyptian Navy rescue efforts did not get underway until dawn, several hours later, because of high winds and rough sea conditions. Later on, the Egyptian Navy was joined by helicopters from U.S. and Australian Navy frigates on duty in the Red Sea as part of the continuing trade embargo on nearby Iraq. By nightfall, Egyptian port sources said 150 people had been rescued.
When we came out of our cabin, the ship is already turning on the right side. So when I think it's going begin to sink, yeah. I came up at the top. I stayed there until the ship completely sunk.
Almost all of the 650 passengers and crew aboard were Egyptian, many of them returning from pilgrimages to Islam's most holy site in Mecca. Others were expatriate workers coming home on their year-end vacations. Carol Berger for CTV News in Cairo.
The ferry was just 6 miles offshore when it ran aground. Some survivors spent several hours clinging to an overturned lifeboat. One of them said, "We could see lights from the port all night long. We looked for planes, but I thought we were going to die." Another survivor said, "All of the ferry's lights went out when it hit the rocks. I'd been in the water for 12 hours when the Navy came," he said. "I grabbed onto the ship and climbed in, but another man died on the ladder. He couldn't make it up." While the final death toll is not yet known, the disaster is one of the worst passenger shipping accidents in recent years. The breakup of the Soviet Union is coming amid a series of escalating crises. The region is grappling with problems ranging from financial difficulties to fuel shortages to ethnic violence. And into this charged atmosphere today came U.S. Secretary of State James Baker. Baker began his 5-day trip by holding talks with Russian officials before Soviet authorities. His first meeting was with Russia's foreign minister, who is seeking U.S. recognition of the 3 republics that make up the new Commonwealth.
This will help to crystallize authority which stems from the people's vote in Ukraine and Russia and in Belarus, and stop the disintegration, further disintegration in this part of the world.
But Baker hedged his answer.
It's not up to the United States to involve ourselves in these political issues.
One of the main reasons for Baker's trip is to seek reassurances about the security of 27,000 nuclear warheads in the Soviet arsenal. Tonight, the president of Ukraine promised those weapons would never be used.
Let me make clear that the control of these weapons means control over their non-use, not over the use of these weapons. Control over the destruction of the weapons, not their production.
Baker's visit comes during a new surge of ethnic violence. In the tiny Western Republic of Moldova, at least 7 people have died in the past 2 days.